Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this evening's class. I know you're busy. I know life is happening, especially in the last couple of months. A lot has changed. So welcome to the Retirement Shield Workshop. You've come to the right place. Tonight, we're going to talk about maximizing Social Security. We're going to talk about the impact of taxes long term, especially with the stimulus and all that's going on right now. We're going to talk about income and the importance of having it in your retirement plan so that it is exactly how you always wanted it to be. And then last but not least, volatility and the things that you can be doing going forward so the one thing you've worked for all your life is not affected, and that's your retirement. We appreciate you being here. Let's go over some logistics for tonight's class. This is live, so if you have any questions, any comments, there's a chat box. So let's take a second and find that now. It's probably on the right side of your computer or the lower right-hand side. And when you find it, type in there, yes. For everyone that finishes tonight's broadcast, that means you stay on until the very end, we're going to give you a Social Security calculator. Something that you've never worked with like before. It is not your basic socialsecurity.gov. It is something that you can put in exact numbers and get value and benefit that will help with your retirement. So we'll provide that at the end of the presentation. My name is Shala, and I am the founder of Shala Financial and part of Retirement Shield. I've been in this business for over 20 years, and I understand the importance of having a comprehensive plan, something that you can completely understand and make sure your money's doing for you exactly what you want it to do. Oftentimes, we have clients that say they wish they had that second chance, that fresh perspective a little bit sooner. You know, people always want to know about taxes, about income, about how to protect their money. And then, of course, maximizing Social Security. We do that through this class. It's your opportunity to get that second opinion. I want to share with you how a number of years ago, a second opinion, a fresh perspective, changed my family's life. My dad passed away August 11th, 1982. Leaving behind my mom with 5 children between the ages of 13 and 20. Now, only a decade earlier, they had struggled to come to America, the promised land. And now my mother was struggling to raise us, working 2 jobs. And then one day, one of her cousins offered her a second opinion, a fresh perspective, to be a homeowner and have a couple of tenants. This was something she had never even dreamed about, but it gave her a new outlook, which provided a new outcome. Now, you want to talk about a second opinion or a fresh perspective that changed my mother's life? I mean, there were times when she was thinking to herself, how am I ever going to do this? How am I going to plan for college? How am I going to pay for their weddings? How am I going to plan for my own retirement? What does this sound like? It's kind of what's going on today, isn't it? There's a lot of uncertainty in the markets. There's uncertainty in the job markets. And that's most likely why you are here tonight. We're going to go through the 4 pillars that you need to get correct. And we're going to make sure that you get that second opinion, that fresh perspective that is being offered to you tonight on what's going on with your money and what we need to do to get it going in the right direction. So let's get into the presentation and cover the 4 pillars of retirement planning that you have to get correct. Let's begin with Social Security. Do you know that 96% of Americans turn on their Social Security at the wrong time? 96%. You have to ask yourself, whose money is this? It's your money that you've worked 20, 30, 40 years for this money. And it's incredibly important that you get everything that's due you. Here's what's interesting. You've got to jump through some hoops. There's some tricks to the trade to get your own money back. But don't be part of the 96%. Let's be part of that 4% that maximizes Social Security. It's going to make a huge difference in your retirement planning. FRA, what does that stand for? Full retirement age. That's when you collect 100% of your benefit. Now, this slide or the next slide, depending on the year you were born, is what determines your full retirement age. Here's what's great. This is where you collect 100% of your benefit. So we need to know exactly what your full retirement age is. You have 3 options on when you can start collecting Social Security benefits. First option is you can collect anytime after you turn 62, but there's a 30% reduction in benefits. Over the years, I've worked with many widows, and 85% of them were women. The number one thing that they thought they needed to do was turn on Social Security. There was a shortage of income, right? But guess what? Almost every time that was the wrong answer. Because the widow, she locked in a 30% reduction for the rest of her life. Option number 2 is collect at full retirement age. This is when you collect 100% of your benefit, and most people shoot for this. And then the third option is anytime after full retirement age. Your benefit increases by 8% annually up to 32%. And these retirement credits accumulate until the age of 70 years old. So these are the 3 main ways of collecting Social Security. That's when we turn it on. Now let's look at the impact of everything else that has to do with claiming these benefits. Whether you start early or late, let's look at those differences. They say that Americans have a fear of retiring because they're not able to make the money tangible. Let's look at the graph. If Mrs. Jones starts collecting Social Security at age 62, her monthly income is going to be $750 a month. Now, I know that's not a ton of money, but now let's look at if she waits till full retirement age and collects. It's $1,000. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, she waited 4 years and her income only went up $250. But think about it for a minute. $250 a month, that's $3,000 a year. Over 10 years, that's $30,000. Now, I see some of you are thinking, that $30,000 can fund my retirement. There's a lot of different things that can be done with that $30,000. When you make money tangible, it can show you that difference. Now, wait a minute. If she waits until age 70, that original $750 a month almost doubles in 8 years. How many of you would like that if your pension doubled in 8 years? How many of you would prefer or appreciate if your portfolios doubled in 8 years? Of course. So you see, by her making decision prior to age 70, she is leaving money on the table. So we don't want to make a rash decision. We want to make sure that each part of your plan is working together. Because if you turn it on too early, guess what? You lock in that reduction for the rest of your life. Let's talk about longevity for a second. This is something that a lot of people overlook. If people in your family have lived a long time and medicine continues to get better, then you have a pretty high probability of living a long time. And if you live a long time, you're going to spend more money. And the number one fear for Americans is running out of money in retirement. So if longevity is a big deal, let's plan for it. Let's have that conversation, because oftentimes clients will tell us that they really hadn't thought about it. Let's talk about spousal benefits. Remember that 96% of Americans were turning their Social Security at the wrong time? Well, 80% of those mistakes happened right here. Spousal benefits are tricky, and they've changed recently quite a bit. However, if you were born before 1954, you're grandfathered in. If you were born after 1954, they've changed, and the changes have been drastic. So as you're taking notes this evening, write that down if you think that it's an area that you need help. Type in the chat box, spousal benefits. Kind of important to make sure that we get it correct, to make sure that you're getting every dollar that you need to be getting. Let's look at working while you collect benefits. We have a lot of clients that still continue to work. They're still doing some consulting, maybe some real estate. And let's look how that affects turning on their Social Security. Here's what I know. They care about earned income. If you're working and want to collect benefits and you're younger than full retirement age, you can do that. But there's a limit on how much you can earn. If you earn up to $18,240, then you're okay. If you go over that amount, you're looking at a 50% penalty. In the year you turn your full retirement age, you can earn $48,240. Over that amount, there's a 30% penalty. I'll tell you, many times I speak with clients when we sit down and they'll say they wanted to turn this income on and turn that income, and then they want to turn Social Security on, but they haven't reached their full retirement age. And they're costing themselves 30 to 50% in penalties because the income isn't planned correctly. Now, this is your money, but I don't want to see you pay penalties. We don't want to see you take a reduction unless you absolutely have to. The good news is once you hit full retirement age, then there's no reduction in benefits and no earning limits. Let's talk about taxes and how that's going to impact Social Security. Now, this is not the only time we're going to talk about taxes, but let's look at some options. If you're single or head of household, you can earn up to $25,000. There's no taxes and none of the benefit will be taxed. Here's what's interesting. If your income jumps and you're single or head of household between $25,000 and $34,000, up to 50% of that income, of that benefit, may be taxed. If you go over that $44,000 mark, then 85% of the benefit can and will be taxed. So once again, depending on how much income is coming into your household or where it's coming from is going to play a role in how your benefits are taxed, or they might not be taxed at all. Now, surely those of you that are married are thinking, well, those numbers should be double. Well, not so fast. Let's look at married filing jointly. Under $32,000 a year, no taxation. If your income jumps between $32,000 and $44,000, up to 50% will be taxed. If you go above that $44,000 mark, then up to 85% of your benefit will be taxed. Again, it's incredibly important. I want to walk with you through a scenario of clients that came to one of our classes and they had wanted to do a kitchen remodel. And I want to share that experience that they had. So they called the Edward Jones guy and told him that they needed some money, and he asked them how much. And they said, $45,000 should do it. So he said, no problem, you have the money. He went in and took it out of their IRA account. And if you'll see on the screen that $45,000 minus the taxes came out to just over $36,000. Here's what's interesting. That $36,000 is all earned income. Actually, The whole $45,000 is earned income. And this severely impacted their taxation situation. They took out $45,000 out of the wrong place. It came out of their IRA. The whole process ended up costing them an extra $10,000 in taxation. And here's what's interesting. They had other cash in non-taxable accounts that could have been used. You just simply pulled it out of the wrong account, sent it to them, and then they started getting tax issues at the end of the year, and they realized, oh gosh, it came out of the IRA accounts. So now they had to pay earned income on the IRA, and oh, this bumped them up tax brackets. They were taxed on their Social Security for the first time ever, and it didn't end there. Most likely their Medicare premiums would be affected going forward. So you see these tiny little mistakes that normal advisors don't think about compound out, costing you, the customer, the client, a lot of extra money. And that's exactly what we do with the people that we devise a plan. We want to make sure you're going to turn on Social Security and you turn it on at the right time. And we're going to make sure that if you're pulling money out, it doesn't impact everything else. That wraps up the first pillar of retirement, Social Security. So you can see real quickly that you can't wing it anymore. Social Security is probably more complicated than ever before, and it's always changing. Then that is why myself and my team work tirelessly, making sure that you get exactly what you need for you and your family. This is not a cookie cutter approach. We designed these plans specifically for you and your family. Let's jump into pillar number 2, called income. I like to use the three-legged stool and look at what is really going to impact income when it comes to retirement. You normally have 3 sources of income. One is Social Security, kind of in a consistent theme throughout tonight, and you'll probably see it in every one of the pillars. 2, pensions, and then 3, IRA money. Your 401ks, your 403bs, money that you've set aside and earmarked for retirement. Probably the accounts that you've seen a little volatility in the last month, or I should say the last couple of months. Let's start with Social Security. We covered that and we really know how to attack that. So let's move on to number 2, pensions. If I were doing this class 20 years ago, everybody in this class would raise their hand and say they had a pension. But here's what I know. 15, 20 years ago, 85% of Americans lost their pensions. The corporations, the companies figured out that it was less expensive to give benefits in a 401k than was to give you a lifetime guaranteed pension. Kind of makes sense, right? And if you're following pensions nowadays, it's probably one of the scariest times ever in our American history because of the lack of liquidity, the lack of solvency in those pensions. You have to ask yourself, is your pension or someone you know fully funded? Is it 100% guaranteed for the lifetime of yourself or maybe your spouse? The answer is no. It's not guaranteed, and most pensions are not. When we're looking at creating an income plan or a distribution plan, this is really what we want to attack. We want to make sure that the paycheck that you used to receive still goes into your account once you retire. Because here's what we know. We know that right now you get paid every 2 weeks or maybe once a month, but when you retire, it stops. And most people really hold off on retirement because there's no plan to replace that income. Do you know that 95% of Americans that are retired or plan to retire in the next 6 to 10 years, which is pretty much everyone in this class, do not have a plan? And that's what's leading to what I believe is the number one fear in retirement: running out of money. My team and I were going to work on helping create a distribution plan, an income plan that's going to be there just like your paycheck every 2 weeks or once a month. We're going to help you identify how much you need on a monthly basis and where exactly that money is coming from. What happens if the markets go backwards 20, 30, 40%? How's that going to affect your lifestyle? What happens if there's another terrorist attack? If interest rates go up? What happens with all the stimulus and taxes go up, right? Let's say you were planning to retire on a $5,000 income and taxes go up 20%. You automatically have a $1,000 a month loss because of it. So we're going to get you a plan that will help create that income with 100% stability. And you're going to have the confidence that you've always waited and wanted for retirement, to do the things that are important to you. Here's kind of how I envision retirement. You've worked 20, 30, maybe 40 years. It's time for your money to pay you back in a true income plan, a true retirement plan. That's exactly what it's going to do. And it's going to remove fear, and it's going to instill confidence. Imagine right now how you would feel if you had this in place already. Would you already know the date that you would retire? I mean, how awesome would that be? Imagine if you had this in place, and if everything that's going on in the world, it didn't bother you. It didn't keep you awake at night, right? How good would that feel? You'd feel pretty amazing, wouldn't you? I mean, how cool is that if we can instill a plan like we did for a couple of our clients, and his wife had been begging him for years to retire. And he said, oh, I need to work another 3 years, have a few more things to do. And last December, we met with Mark and Karen, and they retired. He retired last December. Everything he thought about it wasn't correct. It wasn't that it was incorrect. It was just added stress, extra work that he didn't need to do. Now he's fully retired and they're enjoying life. And how were we able to do that for them? With a distribution plan, an income plan. Think about it. There's people here tonight, right now, that you're going to need a newer car, or you're going to want to go on vacation during retirement. Type in right now car if you're going to need a newer car within the next 10 years. Or vacation, if vacation or traveling is something that you want to do during retirement. Our true income plan or distribution plan will already have that in place. We have couples that want to visit Europe every few years, or we have couples that want to do a cruise every year. We just put that in the plan. We know that they need $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year for vacation, and that's already in the plan. So again, we're going to replace fear of the unknown with confidence. That's what's having a true distribution plan will do, and what a true income plan will do, to rely on and to position yourself to retire with the highest possible net income stream. So we covered Social Security, that was pillar number 1. We covered income, pillar number 2. And I think we definitely understand the importance of having a plan in place, don't we? Now, pillar number 3, we're going to cover taxes. It's something that's coming our way full steam, and no one's talking about it. See, here's the thing. I think taxes are the biggest bombshell of them all, and no one wants to discuss it. No one's talking about it. And it's a little bit scary because the baby boomer generation is going to be hit head on. Let's look at some statistics on the power of what I'm really talking about. As of 2016, 66 cents of every dollar we gave the government went to fund these 4 programs. 1, Social Security, 2, Medicaid, 3, Medicare, and 4, the national debt. And now, here's what I know, 34 cents on the dollar to fund, what is it, $200 trillion? And God only knows what it is now, right? But 34 cents on the dollar is not enough. But if that isn't bad enough, by 2022, that's just a couple of years away, 92 cents of every dollar we give the government will be consumed by these 4 programs. I would argue that by 2022, with all the stimulus we've done, it probably is not going to be a lot, it's going to be a lot more than 92%. Quite frankly, I think it could use every dollar that we give the government. Everything we've done with stimulus the last couple of months is only setting up this country for everything I've been talking about in the last couple of years. A ticking time bomb of taxes. I often say that you shouldn't be called the baby boomer generation. You should be called the 401k generation. And here's why. Because about 20, 30 years ago, when 401ks started, and you started contributing on a weekly or bi-weekly or maybe on a monthly basis, every penny you put in, every penny of match and every penny of growth is now taxable. It's a huge advantage for the government, right? Over a 30-year working period, someone will contribute a tax defer around $75,000 to his or her retirement account. But when you retire and the government forces you to take money out, that has become a $400,000 tax bill. You see, we've been led our whole lives to believe that when we retire, our income goes down, our taxes go down, and that's simply not true. The country has huge deficits, and all they tend to do is print money or provide stimulus. So who do you think is going to pay for that? Why do you think the Secure Act went into play January of this year? The Secure Act is raising the required minimum distribution age from 70 and a half to 72. This tax code already has written increases in it. And in 4 years, they're going to step it up. They're going to increase the amount of money you take out of your required minimum distribution because it was never taxed in the first place. This is the only way and the only option, and they're going to increase taxes because they have to pay down the deficit. Now, here's what I know. People are not talking about it. Advisors are not doing tax planning. And for most of the people we sit with, a strong tax plan and just making sure everything is in the right place can save an average family $80,000 to $100,000 in taxation. I sat down with a couple the other day and laid out a plan where they were able to have an extra $400,000 to $500,000 in their retirement plan to fund things like long-term care, or to take care of if one of them gets sick. Or what happens if they live longer than they never ever expected? They have a bucket of tax-free money that is available to them. I often started my live classes saying, when it comes to taxes, how many of you think that you just don't pay enough in taxes? And everybody always laughs. But here's the thing we know. No one has a tax plan in place. People aren't taking these advantages. Taxes are on sale right now. They literally are, and they don't know it. Obviously, if this is something you're concerned about, here's the opportunity right now. Type in the chat box, taxes. Imagine having a tax plan in place and going forward, never worrying about taxes. It doesn't matter whether they go up 15 or 20%, or if the government tells you to take out even more than you thought so, because you have a tax plan in place. I mean, how good would that feel? To know that you don't have to pay any more than what you had already planned on paying in taxes. Because right now, unless we do something about it, taxes are going to erode most of those retirement accounts at a large number, and people don't even realize it. Please hear me loud and clear on this. Taxes are the biggest time bomb, and no one's talking about it. I'm glad you're in class because we're talking about it. And we're going to put a plan in place for you. We're going to put a plan in place to make sure that you don't pay 1 penny more than you need to by minimizing or even eliminating unnecessary taxes on assets that are generating your income. So if you couldn't tell, I'm pretty passionate about taxes. That was our third pillar. And it's maybe our most important piece that we're able to help clients with. So that takes care of the 3 pillars. Let's get into the last pillar, number 4, the what if. What now? Volatility is what I'm talking about. You see a picture there in front of you of a ship. And most people know the name of the ship, and hopefully you've already guessed it, the Titanic. I often say, why does everybody remember it? A lot of ships have sunk. It happens all the time and we don't remember it. But we remember the Titanic because 1,500 people died that day. It was the unsinkable ship, right? What caused the ship to sink? If you guessed an iceberg, yes. But I'd like to say that I think it was more arrogance. Some say negligence. There were icebergs further and further in the ocean than there'd ever been. The Titanic had stronger steel than anything that's been built before. There's a famous quote from someone who was familiar with the Titanic when it launched that said, "Not even God himself can sink this ship." I've often said that anytime I have taken up the big guy, it really hadn't worked in my favor. But what were they trying to do? They were trying to break records. They were coming to New York as fast as possible from London. They were trying to make themselves a place on the map. The captain was getting warnings. They weren't emails or texts, but he was getting warnings. I want to go back in history and look at some of the warnings that we've had. Were there warnings in 2000 before the dot-com burst? Of course there were. Were there warnings in 2008 with the credit crisis? Yes. Have there been warnings in the last 12 years? The market couldn't go up forever, could it? Now, we didn't know there would be a pandemic or what was going to cause it, but we knew it couldn't continue on up forever. Visualize with me for a moment. If you had a plan in place 6 or 7 months ago, and none of this volatility even bugged you, it didn't affect you, your plan at all, you're still going to continue, you're set to retire in 12 to 18 months, or maybe you're retired and your plan was not affected at all because you had the one thing that the Titanic had. You had enough lifeboats. You had the right lifeboat in your plan. You know, that was the one major flaw of the Titanic, not enough lifeboats. There's a reason that our phones have not been ringing off the hook. Our clients have a plan of stability. They have a plan in place. There's a reason why these classes have been packed, especially the last couple of months. People want a plan. They realize that they didn't have the stability that they thought they had in their current plans. How great it would feel going forward to have a plan like that in place instead of riding the roller coaster of the market and not knowing what's coming next. Most people think there's more volatility. Most think and are concerned about the upcoming election. God only knows what will happen. But the bottom line is we need to have something in place to make sure that whatever happens, it doesn't matter. We need that stability. We need those lifeboats, and we need that plan in place to make sure we're protected because we all know life happens, right? The roller coaster has ups and downs, and so does the market. And we're one twist or one turn away from losing money in our retirement accounts that we really didn't need to lose. I always pick someone out of the audience when I'm teaching the class live, and I'll say, okay, Karen, how much of your $400,000 in your 401k are you comfortable losing when the market corrects? And do you know what Karen and everyone that I've asked in the last 5 years answers? Nothing. Rosa, I do not want to lose anything. And if you're sitting here tonight and you're in class and you're thinking, you know, I really don't enjoy that volatility. I never expected to lose as much as I just did. And I don't want that ever happening to me again. Then that's that fourth pillar right there. Making sure we have a plan in place to address the volatility because the markets go up and down. We know that life happens. Let's get a plan in place so that you have the confidence and security that you've always wanted. I know we covered a lot of information tonight, and I sure hope that you found value in it. You've learned some good stuff, and maybe take a moment and type in yes in the chat box, or maybe type in taxes or Social Security, or maybe type in what you felt was the most valuable this evening. That would be great. We really appreciate your feedback. We talked about Social Security and the importance of maximizing it. We talked about income, about making sure you have the confidence in retirement to know where your next check is coming from. The other thing we talked about is taxes. And quite frankly, everyone here, no one wants to pay more in taxes. So let's put a tax plan in place and take that burden off of your retirement. And then, of course, we talked about the Titanic and the what if and what now, the volatility. It has come. Has it left yet? I don't know. But here's what I know. Our average client, by doing a retirement shield plan, saves anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000. And just making sure that each one of the things we've discussed tonight are maximized and utilized. Otherwise, that money is going down the drain. Otherwise, it's money you would have had for your retirement that's gone forever. It's making sure that everything comes together like a puzzle. And it fits the way it's supposed to be. And here's what's interesting. Everyone's puzzle is different, right? And that's the problem with the big banks and the other guys. They want to fit everyone into the same mold, but everybody's in a different category. And that's what we're doing here. We're customizing and creating a plan specific to you and your family. Now, one of the things I promise is that if you stay to the end, we would give you that Social Security calculator. That alone is a huge benefit and has been valuable for many of the retirees. So you're going to get that as promised, no doubt about that. But here's what I know. I know that some of you came for good information, you took some good notes and everything, and you have everything you needed. But some of you came for genuine help. You might not really understand it all. You might say, you know, this isn't my cup of tea. I need to do this and I've put it off. Well, that's what myself and my team do. What we do is help you get those questions answered and plan to create that retirement plan for you. You're going to be able to work with me side by side, and we're going to help create that plan that addresses Social Security, taxes, income plan, and that volatility, the what if plan. So the first 10 qualified people to sign up, click on the link before and figure out your schedule, and we look forward to working with you.